2 years ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table staring at a pile of things I had just bought from Target. Candles I didn't need, a throw pillow replacing another pillow that was perfectly fine, a kitchen gadget still sitting unopened beside the last kitchen gadget I had bought and forgotten about. Then I opened my credit card statement. I had spent $4,100 that month. My savings account had $812. I was earning $63,000 a year, and I had been earning more than $50,000 for roughly 6 years. Yet somehow, after all that time, I had very little to show for it. What bothered me most wasn't that I had bought a few unnecessary things. It was that I had no idea how so much money had disappeared. Around that same time, I came across the Japanese budgeting method known as Kakeibo, a century-old approach built around something almost embarrassingly simple: paying deliberate attention to every dollar before and after you spend it. That idea led me down a much deeper rabbit hole. I discovered that Japan has developed a number of cultural concepts around money, consumption, simplicity, saving, waste, and long-term thinking. Some of these ideas aren't financial systems in the traditional sense at all. They're philosophies about how to live, and that distinction matters. Because the biggest problem with personal finance usually isn't mathematics, it's behavior. You can understand compound interest and still spend every paycheck. You can download the best budgeting app in the world and still impulse buy things you don't need. You can earn a 6-figure salary and remain financially fragile if your lifestyle expands every time your income does. So I decided to experiment. I didn't change my career. I didn't suddenly double my income. I didn't turn my entire life into a no-spending challenge. Instead, I began changing the rules underneath my spending. Over the next year, I started keeping a written record of my purchases, questioning waste, creating more financial margin, saving before spending, and deliberately finding satisfaction in things I already owned. The result was surprising. My savings grew from $812 to more than $19,000. The important part wasn't the number. It was realizing that my financial life had changed without requiring a completely different income. That is what makes these Japanese financial principles so interesting. They aren't about looking rich. They're about becoming financially difficult to destabilize. Today, we're going through 10 Japanese concepts and habits that can help you build that kind of quiet financial strength. Some are practical budgeting techniques. Others are philosophical ideas about consumption and contentment. And together, they point toward a very different way of thinking about wealth. Let's begin with the oldest one. 1. Kakeibo. Make your spending visible. Kakeibo, traditionally translated as a household financial ledger, was introduced in Japan in the early 20th century by Hani Motoko, a pioneering journalist. The method doesn't require sophisticated software. You start with 4 questions. How much money do I have coming in? What must I spend? How much do I want to save? And what remains available for discretionary spending? Then you record your purchases and classify them. The traditional categories generally distinguish between necessities, optional wants, culture or personal enrichment, and unexpected expenses. The genius isn't the categories. It's the awareness. When you tap a card, spending can feel abstract. A purchase takes 2 seconds. There is no physical exchange of cash, and the transaction can disappear into an app among dozens of others. Writing it down creates a pause. Suddenly, $38 delivery becomes a conscious decision. You aren't simply spending anymore. You're observing yourself spending. That creates a powerful question. Was this actually worth it? You don't need to eliminate every restaurant meal or entertainment purchase. Kakeibo isn't about punishment. It's about making unconscious spending conscious. And once you can see your behavior clearly, changing it becomes much easier. 2. Motenai. Stop treating waste like it's normal. One Japanese concept that translates poorly into English is motenai. At its heart is a sense of regret over wasting something that still has value. Food, clothing, materials, money, time. The underlying message is simple. If something still has usefulness, throwing it away simply because something newer exists may be wasteful. This is particularly powerful in a consumer economy, where replacement is constantly presented as improvement. Your phone still works, but there's a newer one. Your shoes are functional, but a different pair looks better. Your furniture isn't broken, but your social media feed has convinced you that your living room needs a makeover. Motenai introduces another question. What if I used what I already have more fully? Try it with food first. Before buying groceries, look through your refrigerator. Before replacing something, ask whether it can be repaired. Before ordering another item online, check whether you already own something that performs the same function. This doesn't mean refusing to replace things that genuinely need replacing. It means separating need from novelty. That distinction alone can save a remarkable amount of money over the years. 3. Harahachi. Bu, leave some room. The Japanese expression harahachi bu is associated particularly with Okinawan culture and means stopping eating before you are completely full. The financial lesson is bigger than food. It's the principle of leaving room. Modern consumer culture constantly encourages us to fill every available space. Fill the closet, fill the calendar, fill the house, fill the entertainment schedule, and spend every dollar available. But financial security requires the opposite. It requires margin. Imagine two people who each bring home $4,000 per month. One structures life around spending essentially all $4,000. The other builds a lifestyle that works on $3,200 and protects the remaining $800. The second person has created breathing room. That $800 can become an emergency fund, retirement savings, investments, or simply protection against unexpected expenses. And here's the crucial point. Margin is not deprivation. Margin is what allows an unexpected bill to remain an inconvenience instead of becoming a financial emergency. You don't have to live like you're poor. You simply need to resist the idea that every dollar you earn must immediately become something you consume. 4. Kaizen. Improve by small amounts. Kaizen is often translated as continuous improvement. The concept became famous internationally through Japanese manufacturing, but the underlying principle works remarkably well in personal finance. Instead of attempting a dramatic financial transformation overnight, make small improvements consistently. Reduce restaurant spending slightly. Increase your retirement contribution by a small amount. Cancel one subscription. Negotiate one bill. Cook at home one additional night each week. Wait before making non-essential purchases. Then repeat. The advantage is psychological. A massive lifestyle overhaul requires enormous motivation. Small adjustments require much less. And because the changes are manageable, you're more likely to maintain them. Saving an extra $50 this month may not feel revolutionary, but increasing your savings by $50, then another $50, then another $100, while simultaneously improving other parts of your financial system can produce a dramatically different result over several years. Wealth is often less about one spectacular decision and more about thousands of ordinary decisions pointing in the same direction. 5. Ikigai. Know what your money is for. Ikigai is commonly translated as a reason for being or a reason to live. It's often presented online as a career framework, but the broader concept is about purpose and meaning that connects directly to money. Because if you don't know what your money is supposed to accomplish, spending becomes extremely easy to justify. A new phone feels important. A weekend purchase feels harmless. Another subscription seems affordable. Another meal out doesn't seem significant. But once you have a clearly defined financial purpose, the decision changes. Maybe your goal is financial independence. Maybe it's helping your family. Maybe it's funding education. Maybe it's buying a home without becoming overwhelmed by debt. Maybe it's simply having enough savings that losing a job wouldn't immediately become a crisis. Your financial goals don't have to impress anyone. They just need to mean something to you. Purpose creates a filter. Instead of asking, can I afford this? You begin asking, does this move me toward the life I'm trying to build? Those are two completely different questions. 6. Wabi-sabi. Learn to appreciate what isn't perfect. Wabi-sabi is a Japanese aesthetic philosophy associated with imperfection, simplicity, and impermanence. Financially, it offers a powerful challenge to consumer culture. Something doesn't automatically become worthless because it has a scratch. A table doesn't stop being useful because it has marks from years of use. A jacket doesn't lose its value because it isn't this year's style. A phone doesn't become useless because another model exists. Modern advertising often depends on dissatisfaction. It tells you that what you already own is outdated, incomplete, or insufficient. Wabi-sabi asks you to look at the same object differently. Could you appreciate it longer? Could you repair it? Could its imperfections actually be evidence that you've used it well? The financial benefit is straightforward. The longer useful possessions remain useful, the less frequently you have to replace them. And every replacement you don't make is money that can potentially remain in your financial system instead. 7. Osoji. Perform an annual financial deep clean. At the end of the year, many Japanese households participate in osoji, a thorough cleaning intended to clear away accumulated clutter before the new year. You can apply the same idea to your finances. Once a year, perform a complete financial cleanup. Look through your bank accounts. Review subscriptions. Check insurance. Examine recurring payments. Review debts. Look at investment allocations. Check whether your financial goals still make sense. You may discover charges you've forgotten about, services you no longer use, or financial decisions that made sense 2 years ago, but no longer fit your circumstances. Think of it as maintenance. We maintain cars because neglect eventually becomes expensive. Money deserves the same treatment. A financial system can quietly deteriorate when nobody reviews it. 1 hour of attention each year can prevent months or years of unnecessary leakage. 8. Chokin. Save before you spend. Chokin simply relates to savings, and the principle here is one of the most important in personal finance. Don't make saving the final step. Make it the first step. The traditional pattern many people follow is earn, spend, save whatever remains. The problem is obvious. There may be nothing left. Instead, reverse the sequence. Earn, save, spend what remains. If your paycheck arrives and an automatic transfer immediately sends part of it towards savings or investments, your spending naturally adjusts to the smaller amount. You don't have to repeatedly exercise willpower. The money simply isn't available for casual spending. For example, suppose you take home $4,500 each month. If you automatically direct $700 towards savings and investments, your lifestyle is built around $3,800. After a few months, $3,800 starts feeling normal. That's the power of automation. The people who consistently save aren't necessarily more disciplined. Often, they've simply designed their financial system so that the right behavior happens automatically. 9. Shinrin-yoku, stop making entertainment a transaction. Shinrin-yoku, commonly called forest bathing, involves spending quiet time in nature as a way of reconnecting with the environment and slowing down. Its financial lesson is surprisingly relevant. Not everything enjoyable needs to cost money. For many people, entertainment has become synonymous with consumption. Go somewhere. Buy something. Order something. Pay for something. Repeat. But some of the best forms of recreation are inexpensive or completely free. Walking. Cooking with friends. Reading. Visiting a public park. Going to the library. Exploring your city. Playing a sport. Having a conversation without turning it into a restaurant bill. The goal isn't to eliminate paid entertainment. It's to stop believing that spending is the requirement for having a good time. Once you separate enjoyment from consumption, your financial options become much larger. 10. Hansei. Review yourself without excuses. Finally, there's Hansei, a Japanese practice of reflection and self-examination. The idea isn't to beat yourself up. It's to look honestly at what happened and identify what should change. This may be the missing ingredient in almost every financial system. At the end of each month, ask yourself 3 questions. What went well? Where did my money disappear unnecessarily? And what is one thing I can improve next month? Maybe you spent too much on delivery. Maybe you saved more than expected. Maybe an impulse purchase wasn't worth it. Maybe a particular expense actually brought enormous value to your life. The goal isn't perfection. It's learning. And that brings all 10 principles together. Kakeibo gives you awareness. Mottainai reduces waste. Hara Hachibu creates margin. Kaizen creates gradual improvement. Ikigai gives your money purpose. Wabi-sabi challenges unnecessary replacement. Osoji keeps your financial system clean. Chokin makes saving automatic. Shinrin-yoku reminds you that enjoyment doesn't always require spending. And Hansei turns your mistakes into information. None of these ideas requires a 6-figure salary. None requires perfect market timing. None requires becoming obsessed with spreadsheets. They all begin with something much simpler. Paying attention, the woman sitting at that kitchen table with $812 in savings didn't necessarily need another raise. She needed to understand where her money was going. She needed to stop confusing consumption with progress. She needed to create a little space between earning money and immediately spending it. And most importantly, she needed a financial philosophy she could actually live with. That's the real lesson. Wealth isn't always loud. It doesn't have to look like an expensive car, a giant house, or a social media lifestyle. Sometimes wealth looks incredibly ordinary. It's a paid-off credit card. It's 6 months of expenses sitting in savings. It's an investment account quietly growing in the background. It's being able to handle an unexpected bill without panic. It's having the freedom to say no to something because you don't need to impress anyone. And perhaps most importantly, it's reaching the point where your financial life feels intentional rather than accidental. You don't need to adopt every Japanese concept in this video. Start with 1. Write down your spending. Automate your savings. Use what you already own. Leave some margin in your budget. Review your finances once a month. Then improve from there. Because financial transformation rarely arrives as one dramatic moment. It usually happens quietly. 1 purchase questioned. $1 saved. 1 unnecessary expense removed. 1 better decision repeated tomorrow. Then again next month. And again next year. That's how small habits become financial security. Not quickly, not dramatically, but consistently. And over enough time, consistency can become something far more powerful than a higher paycheck. Freedom,